People are always unsure about their summoner spells, and if you're playing League, it may be a bit overwhelming, so let's take a closer look at it. Who am I to tell you though? I'm a multi-season challenger player myself and currently a full-time pro player. Every single summoner spell has its own usage, and every summoner spell has its own usage in their role. That is super important to understand. Currently there are 9 summoner spells in the game. Going from left to right, we have Flash, Ignite, Ghost, Exhaust, Teleport, Barrier, Cleanse and Smite, and we just gonna start with Flash. Basically Flash kinda used on every single role and in almost every single game, so there are only a few champions that are not using Flash from time to time. Especially when you are a mid ADC or support player, you can kinda always go with Flash and be pretty sure about it. Next on the list we have Ignite, and Ignite is a summoner spell that is dealing damage over time and is obviously used when you want to play aggressive lane. Pretty often there are champions like Riven or LeBlanc for example that sometimes use Ignite on their lanes, but it's not really used in the jungle or AD carry department. So if you're a top laner, a mid laner or a support, then you can maybe look at Ignite, but usually it's way better for solo lanes to just consider taking TP, and on support you need to always decide between Ignite, Exhaust and heal yourself. Ghost is a summoner spell where you are getting a lot of movement speed, and Ghost can be super good if you are seeing a lot of champs that you can dodge skill shots for example. Like Ghost can be used basically on any single role, but only a few champions on AD carry use it sometimes. Let's say for example you're playing Sivir and you feel like you don't need Barrier, you don't need Cleanse, then it's often the best one to take because there are no other like options, and it's usually a late game rune or like a mid to late game rune because Ghost doesn't really have impact in the earlier stages of the game. Next one would be Exhaust. Exhaust is a summoner spell where you will reduce the movement speed of the enemy, but the more important part is that you are actually reducing the damage of the enemy. So Exhaust can be used when you are playing against champions that have really high burst. For example, Exhaust is often played on support when enemies have champions like Ken. Like Ken is a champion that has a lot of burst, right? He has no consistent damage, but if you can block his damage by exhausting him in a teamfight for example, then he's basically pretty useless. Heal is a summoner spell, I mean, you may know it from the name, that heals you and one ally. So in the most cases heal is only played on support. There are no, like currently there are no really other champions or roles that would consider taking heal. Heal is mostly used on supports that are enchanters like Lulu, Soraka, or stuff that can heal or basically protect someone. Heal is not only giving you health, heal is also giving you movement speed, which is super important and a lot of people may not even know about that. If you find this video helpful so far, feel free to check out the comment section and maybe drop me some feedback below, and feel free to leave a like. Teleport. Teleport is something that is only used for laners, so for top lane, mid lane and sometimes on AD carry. On AD carry it's only really used when you are facing mages for example that would consider taking TP. The advantage of taking TP yourself as AD carry then would be that you can simply match the enemy TP and nothing will really happen in lane. But mostly used it's on the solo lanes, so on mid and top lane. Why is it like that? Usually in League there are always 3 lanes, and if these 3 lanes are being played, then the side laners with teleport usually go onto the side lane. That means if they now have teleport, for example, then it's way easier for them to either connect to your team or to move to your team and then afterwards teleport to side lane to receive waves again and push. Barrier is currently only really used in specific top lane cases like Warwick for example. Some players are using Barrier, but usually Barrier is only a summoner spell for AD carries. It's super good to get good trades in, especially in the early game. So if the enemies have like high burst bot lane for example, it's usually the best thing that you can take, and if Cleanse has no value, then Barrier is usually your shot to go because you're simply blocking damage from the enemies and can also be really beneficial in teamfights for example. Cleanse is one of the summoner spells that is really used in high competitive games. You're basically getting freed from CC, like let's say you're playing against a lot of champs with hard CC like Pantheon for example, Ari Charm, any engaged support like Leona, you know, if they stun you, you can basically press Cleanse and then you're free from the CC, and that is super good and super broken. But Cleanse is usually a rune that is only considered on AD carry as well, so you have Flash and then probably can be taken cleanse if enemies have like Leona or a lot of hard CC. There are also a few rare cases where solo laners would get cleanse, but usually you are always considering either TP or Ignite on solo lanes. And the last one would be Smite. I mean, Smite is a summoner spell that is only used on one role, and it's jungle, and it's really jungle specific. No other laner or something would ever use Smite, and you're only taking it on jungle, so that is the easiest one. So let's sum things up. We have basically flash on every single champion. Then, if we are going from top to bot, top laners usually always take flash plus teleport. There are also a few cases where people go like Ignite Ghost, for example, or Ignite TP, but the usual thing that is happening is that you are actually taking flash and teleport, but this is not always the case, so you can kind of play around with the summoner spells if you want, and then just feel like what is working good for you. There are a lot of Riven players, for example, that simply go Ignite. They want to play for kills, they don't really like TP because they have this strong lane power. Then jungle, we will always have Smite in jungle plus an additional summoner spell. In 90% of the cases it's flash. There are also a few cases where you could like maybe go Ghost if you're playing Gwen, for example, or like a lot of Shakos that are going Ignite, but usually you're always going Smite and flash, but it also depends on your champ obviously. Then for mid lane you kinda only have two options. It's the flash and teleport and flash or Ignite. There are maybe a few cases where it's like worth to go flash Ghost or something, but usually, and if you're a beginner, I would stick to these two. On AD carry it's pretty simple. You have flash and barrier or flash and cleanse, and if you feel like none of these two will fit for this game, then you can also consider taking teleport or Ghost yourself. And there may even be a few cases for exhaust. And then the last role, support. You usually always go flash, and then you kinda have the option to decide between Ignite, exhaust and heal. Usually a lot of supporters currently go heal because it's really strong. That's it for the video. I hope you found this helpful. Again, feel free to go into the comment section and leave me some feedback. I highly appreciate everything. It doesn't need to be positive, it can also be negative. And then have a good day. Bye bye.